Let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly. Not for me, but for yourself. Who do you think spends more of their income just to survive? Someone earning $50,000 a year, or someone earning $5 million a year? Take a second. Think about it. Most of you said the person earning $50,000, and you would be right. But here is what almost no one talks about. The person earning $50,000 does not just spend more of their income. They pay a higher effective price for nearly everything in their life. Their car loan carries a higher interest rate. Their apartment costs more per square foot than a mortgage would. Their groceries cost more because they cannot afford to buy in bulk, and their health scare costs more because they skipped the preventive care they could not afford last year. We have a name for this. Economists call it the poverty premium. I call it the middle class tax. And unlike the kind the government charges, nobody talks about this one. Today, I am going to show you that being middle class is not just hard. It is expensive, structurally, systematically, and by design. Let us start with the numbers. First, credit. The average subprime auto loan carries an interest rate of 14 to 20%. The average prime borrower pays under 5%. On a $25,000 car, that is the difference between paying $3,000 in interest or $14,000. Same car, same road, wildly different price tag. Second, housing. A person renting a modest two-bedroom apartment pays, on average, 35 to 45% of their gross income on rent. A homeowner who had the capital to put down a down payment pays closer to 20 to 25%. And here is the real kicker. The renter builds zero wealth. The homeowner, over 30 years, builds hundreds of thousands of dollars. Third, banking. Roughly 22 million Americans are unbanked or underbanked. They pay check cashing fees of 2 to 3% on every single paycheck. They pay payday loan fees that, when annualized, represent interest rates of 300 to 400%. They pay overdraft fees averaging $35 per transaction. In 2022 alone, American banks collected over $7 billion in overdraft fees, most of it from the people who could least afford it. Fourth, healthcare. A person with good employer-sponsored insurance pays a $20 copay for a doctor visit. An uninsured person pays $150 to $250 out of pocket. So, they delay the visit. The condition worsens. What could have been treated for $20 becomes a $3,000 emergency room bill, and possibly a debt that follows them for years. Fifth, food. A low-income neighborhood dollar buys fewer calories of nutrition than a dollar spent in a higher-income area. Food deserts are real, and the tax on time, taking 3 buses just to find fresh produce, that is real too. The bottom line is this. If you do not have capital, you pay a premium for the privilege of not having it. That is the trap. Now let us flip it. Let us talk about how wealthy individuals navigate the exact same financial world, and why they consistently pay less for every dollar of value they receive. Bulk purchasing power. Wealthy families buy their homes outright or negotiate favorable terms. They buy in bulk, not just groceries, but services, legal work, accounting, everything. A family office paying $50,000 a year for accounting might be managing $100 million in assets. The cost as a percentage? Negligible. Access to better financial products. A high net worth individual does not walk into a bank and ask for a loan. They call their private banker, who offers a line of credit against their investment portfolio at 1 to 2% interest. No application, no credit check, no waiting. Meanwhile, their neighbor with a 640 credit score is paying 24% APR on a credit card just to cover an emergency. Tax optimization. This is a big one. The wealthy do not earn income the way employees do. They earn capital gains, which are taxed at a maximum of 20% federally. Compare that to ordinary income rates that can hit 37%. They use depreciation, carried interest, trust structures. They hire entire teams whose only job is to legally ensure as little of their money as possible goes to the government. The middle class earns a salary. The government takes its share before the person ever sees the money. A wealthy investor earns returns. They control when and how that income is recognized. It is a fundamentally different relationship with money. And then there is time arbitrage. Wealthy people buy time. They hire assistants, personal chefs, drivers, property managers. This frees their mental energy to focus on things that actually multiply their capital. A middle-class professional manages their own calendar, drives their own car, handles their own chores, and often arrives at their wealth-building activities completely drained. Here is the cruel irony. Wealth does not just make you richer, it makes every dollar you spend go further. The wealthy pay less for credit, less in taxes, less per unit of value received, while the middle class pays a premium at every single turn. Now I want to talk about something that does not show up on any balance sheet, but it may be the most significant cost of all. In 2013, researchers Sendil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir published a landmark book called Scarcity. Their finding was counterintuitive and devastating. The experience of scarcity consumes cognitive bandwidth. It is not that middle-class people make bad financial decisions because they lack intelligence. It is that the constant mental load of managing financial stress literally occupies working memory, calculating whether you can afford the car repair, whether the credit card will decline at the grocery store, whether you can make rent if your hours get cut. That kind of thinking degrades decision-making. It increases impulsivity. The researchers found that this cognitive drain is equivalent to losing 13 IQ points. For context, that is the same cognitive impact as pulling an all-nighter. The wealthy do not face this, not because they are smarter, but because they have purchased cognitive freedom. They do not wonder if the check will clear, and this creates a vicious cycle. Financial stress impairs the very decision-making that is needed to escape financial stress. The middle class spends mental energy managing scarcity instead of building abundance. That is a hidden tax. And unlike the interest rates, the overdraft fees, the healthcare premiums we talked about earlier, this one does not show up in any economic data. It shows up in the faces of people sitting across from you at the dinner table. So, now that we understand the problem, let us talk about what comes next. The structural costs that trap the middle class are not inevitable. They are the result of information gaps, access barriers, and financial products that were never designed with ordinary people in mind. And here's the thing about systematic inefficiency and underserved need. It creates opportunity. Think about what has happened in just the last decade. Index funds made institutional quality diversification available to anyone with $10 and a smartphone. Fintech apps eliminated the minimum account balances that kept lower-income people out of banking entirely. Online platforms reduced the cost of estate planning from $5,000 to $500. The barriers are coming down, but we are still in the early innings. The average American household has about $8,000 in liquid savings. The average American household with a financial advisor has over $600,000 in investable assets. That is more than 70 times as much. Access to professional financial guidance is one of the most dramatic predictors of long-term wealth. Our thesis is simple. The middle class is not struggling because they spend irresponsibly. They are financially constrained because they are systematically overcharged for capital, underserved by institutions, and excluded from the wealth-building mechanisms that the top 10% take for granted. The addressable market, 200 million Americans, a $14 trillion wealth gap, and a generation of people who are hungry for something better than what their parents had. Every generation has a moment where the financial architecture of society shifts. The creation of the 401k in 1978 shifted retirement responsibility from corporations to individuals and created an entirely new wealth management industry almost overnight. The internet democratized information. Mobile democratized communication. We are at the beginning of the next shift. The tools exist. The data exists. The demand is undeniable. The only question is, who builds the infrastructure? We are not building another product for wealthy people who already have access to everything. We are building the on-ramp, the bridge between where most people are and where they deserve to be. The wealthy have always had access to better tools, better rates, better advice, better outcomes. We are here to change that math. I started by asking you a question. Who pays more? The person earning $50,000 or the person earning $5 million? Now you know the answer is not just about tax brackets. It is about the entire architecture of financial life. The interest rates, the fees, the healthcare costs, the cognitive load, the compounding disadvantage of not having capital access from the very beginning. Being middle class is genuinely more expensive than being rich. That is not a political statement. That is a structural one. And structural problems have structural solutions. Thank you for watching.